Welcome down to the abyssal lair of the Radiophonic Sea Creatures. And this is kind of like a special episode of the Radiophonic Sea Creatures because, to be honest, Brack and I, we have just recorded an episode of the Radiophonic Sea Creatures, but it was beset by technical demons and difficulties, and we had a pretty rough time of things, but we're over the hump now.
That doesn't have anything to do with Human Metal not being here. It's not like we recorded his death live on the air, and that's why we have to redo the podcast. That's not the case at all.
No. So just whatever you do, don't like Google the name Human Metal and holes in the Nevada desert, because that's just you just don't want to see those images. But on the plus side, Brack and I did find the remains of Jimmy Hoffa. So every cloud has a silver lining, I guess. But so anyway, we've had technical difficulties, but here we are recording the same episode again. But rather than just like repeat the same shit, we're actually going to do a more condensed episode. We're going to talk about a few things and talk about a few ideas or whatever. So it's kind of like a loose, casual episode here, Brack. So anyway, getting back into the shallows, what's first on your shallows list, Brack?
First on my shallow list is Keanu Fever, which I've been watching John Wick Chapter 3, which is I was thinking it's going to be the end of the trilogy, but they're probably going to make 2 more or something, and I'm really happy for it, because while the story isn't all that strong in my opinion, I think the characters are really fun, the world is really fun, and the action is better than anything you have ever seen before. Like, you can definitely see that's directed by like a guy who does like stunt work himself, and most of it is practical, and you definitely don't see like a straight up like old school like stunt people action movie with this big a budget. So that in that way you will see stuff you've never seen before. Like, and you have like there are some action stuff in this movie where people in my audience had like loud gasps, like, what the hell is going on? This is amazing. I love this. This is awesome. I want more of this. Shoot this stuff. Make 5 more and shoot it directly into my veins. That's how much I enjoyed John Wick Chapter 3.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing that film. I really enjoyed John Wick Chapter 2. I really loved the world building in that film. I thought it was a really interesting movie with a great many fantastic action scenes. So I'm really glad that they've obviously made a fantastic sequel there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Me myself, I guess first on my shadows list would be WWE Super Showdown. Brack hates talking about pro wrestling, but goddamn, Super Showdown was a real mess. So it took place in Saudi Arabia, which is controversial because Saudi Arabia has been doing a lot of crazy political shit as of recent times, including murdering a well-known journalist. So the WWE gets a lot of flack for performing in Saudi Arabia, especially because their women's revolution epitomizes, equality for women, but Saudi Arabia won't let the women's division of the WWE perform in Saudi Arabia. So that's kind of, it's basically very controversial grounds for the WWE. However, that's not really what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is the absolute fucking car crash that happened in the main event of Super Showdown, where you had The Undertaker versus Goldberg, 2 semi-retired, almost entirely retired wrestlers, both over the age of 50, coming back for a big paycheck from, rich Saudi oil princes or whatever the fuck. So basically they got paid a whole shit ton of money to come out of retirement to fight each other. However, they are old, they don't have physical strength anymore, and they can't perform like they used to. And they went out in Saudi Arabia in 100 degrees heat to fight each other, and then basically set about murdering each other in various different ways. So early in the match, Bill Goldberg smashed into a ring post which took a chunk out of his head, about the size of a coin or whatever, and then he was just fountaining blood for the remainder of the match. The Undertaker's finisher, the Tombstone Pile Driver, which is a move which should drop the opponent onto the head, except in real life The Undertaker actually takes that impact on his knees. The Undertaker's too old. He didn't have the power, or maybe he was sweaty or whatever, but he just dropped Goldberg right on his head, which, just left you as the audience gasping like, oh my god, what the fuck? Then later, after that, Goldberg was totally out of it. He suffered a massive concussion, and you could see his eyes were glazed. He was a dead man walking, basically. He had nothing going on. The lights are on, but nobody was fucking home there. And then the Goldberg tried to do his finisher on the Undertaker, which was this float over suplex called the jackhammer. But he just kind of lost his balance or control or whatever. The Undertaker maybe weighed too much, and he just dropped the Undertaker right on his head. And the way the Undertaker's neck kind of snapped back and his whole body kind of compacted, the Undertaker's lucky he didn't die right there on the spot. He's lucky that he didn't lose, that he's not fucking suffering from paralysis or whatever. But watching as the audience, it was horrific. The arena, even though this is a high profile match, was deathly silent. And you as the audience is just basically screaming to the referee like come on, just stop this match, please, just stop it. Like, these guys are going to kill each other. The finish of the match came. I think they had this spot organized where the Undertaker was going to pull Bill Goldberg into another tombstone, but Bill Goldberg just collapsed in the Undertaker's arms, and he was just out of it. So the Undertaker had no recourse. He just basically pulled Bill Goldberg up into a choke slam. But even the choke slam, Goldberg was so out of it, he couldn't even do anything so simple as just jump off the mat. So the Undertaker just basically did a really crappy kind of choke slam and pinned him. Then after the match, all these fireworks were going off or whatever, and the Undertaker was looking really, really pissed off. Like, really. I mean, he knew they had screwed the pooch here, and this had gone terrible. And it's really weird juxtaposition to see all these fireworks and this celebratory kind of atmosphere on the surface. I mean, while the Undertaker glaring at the camera like, he just wants to come to your house and beat the shit out of you and piss in your cereal. Meanwhile, poor old Bill Goldberg, meanwhile, had collapsed outside the ring and was being removed by emergency EMTs. So...
You're saying this almost ended exactly the way the wrestler ended, where it's like the guy, like the old dude dying in the ring for the love of the sport, and he needed the money, right?
That's exactly what this was. This was the wrestler, but actually real, which makes it even sadder and horrific, and even more horrific. So, oh man, I really hope that both of these performers got fucking titty tasseled in the face by Marisa Tomei. That would make life just better.
I think McMahon, who's the guy from WWE? McMahon,
Vince McMahon, the devil.
Vince McMahon. He's
the
probably
devil.
thinking to himself, if they died, I wouldn't have to pay them, so that's like a win-win for me.
Yeah, probably. You know what? I don't think that's far from the truth. I think that man is actually probably the worst human being to ever walk the face of the earth. But we'll see about that. So what's next on your list, Brack?
Next on my list is more Keanu. Like you can't get enough of a little bit Keanu. You need like a lot of Keanu.
Something that confuses me about Keanu. There was a movie made with a fucking cat that's called Keanu, and it just has a cat in a baseball cap and like a bunch of chains. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, me neither. Do you know of its existence though?
Yeah, I know it, and I think Keanu's actually in it at some point.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
That's cool. Oh.
He voices the cat.
Does he? Okay. Well, damn. Now I kind of want to watch that movie. But carry on.
Yeah, Keanu's popular again, like really popular. So that's why it was like a big surprise that watching the trailer, like the E3 trailer for Cyberpunk 2077, is that at the end of the trailer, all of a sudden Keanu shows up, like it's like little digital Keanu, like in the game playing like a character, and it's like, oh, this is really interesting. Like I didn't expect Keanu to be in a video game in general, and especially in a game like this that really fits with his his movie history. But there's a but to this, right? you probably know that like a lot of times like with video games, when there's like a digital character in a game and then they like Overwatch or The Witcher or whatever, the freaky people on the internet use those character models to make porn, right? You know
Oh.
about this? So we're only a year away from hardcore Keanu Reeves porn at the internet. Like Keanu Reeves having sex with like the characters from Overwatch, or like fucking Geralt from The Witcher, like on a cyberpunk unicorn. That stuff is gonna be a reality real soon.
You know what? No, you're making me excited now, Brack. You shouldn't excite me like that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you can make it yourself. Like you can make it exactly the way you want to in just about a year. So you have like if E3 is disappointing in many ways, you at least have this to look forward to.
Oh man, I want to see like a digitized version of John Wick and the guy from the Matrix and Keanu the cat. Just have some kind of like, I don't know, a freeway boning of, let's say, Amy from the Sonic series. Actually, I regret saying that because some fucker's gonna make that, and I don't want to see it. I changed my mind. I'm gonna back off from that. But what do you think about E3 this year, Brack? I mean, me myself, I'm nonplussed this year because basically I have discovered that there's just no time for gaming for me as of recent times. I hope that time will develop for me in the future, but I'm mostly a Sony PlayStation player these days, and Sony's not at E3, so basically my interest has completely diminished because I don't have a gaming rig. I can't play PC exclusive. I've got no interest in Xbox. Not going to do that, especially because I live in Japan and Xbox just doesn't really exist out here. It's non-existent. So yeah, it's all about PlayStation for me, and there's just no PlayStation presence really. And whilst some of the games at E3, of course, are nice, like things like Doom are interesting, or things like Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed or whatever. But the fact is that there's nothing really truly original at this point in this kind of life cycle of these consoles, especially because soon we're going to see the rise of the next console generation, right? Which is kind of the more exciting stuff, where you can get excited about new graphics and new gameplay styles, etc., or whatever. But I'm really coasting on fumes here for this E3. I mean, for me personally, this year I only really plan to buy two games. One's already been released, Sonic Team Racing, which was actually really good. So egg on your face, Brack. There's Sonic coming back at you prick. And the other game is Shenmue 3, which is going to be released later this year. Frankly, I expect a bit of a car crash, but I can't really ignore it because I was so in love with the previous games that I'm going to try that. Even if they've basically released a bag of shit with the Shenmue logo like stamped on it, literally a bag of shit, I would still probably queue around the block for that because that's how much their franchise meant for me when I was younger.
Damn. Yeah. I'm not gonna play Shenmue. That's for sure. That's not my thing at all. But there are some games I'm interested in. But it's definitely noticeable that most of the games are already announced, and I think it feels like all the developers and stuff holding their big guns behind for next gen. So right now you get a lot of like semi sequels or not really huge sequels, like in between games before the next gen arrives, and yeah, and I got a lot. At this point in the generation, like the ending of a generation, you always got like a huge backlog. Like everybody got a huge backlog. So I'm not really looking forward to paying $60 for a game where I have equally good games still like waiting to play.
Yes, I absolutely agree. I think like for example, I have Spider-Man, but I have no time to play Spider-Man. But I think I've played about 2 hours of that. I'm about one third through Red Dead Redemption 2, and I really want to finish those before I start in on any other major open world game. And let's face it, every game pretty much these days released is like a open world game. I mean, when I think about the games I've actually finished this year, the only game I can really think of is What Remains of Edith Finch, which was like 3 hours long. And that was really fucking great, by the way. if you haven't played What Remains of Edith Finch, especially if you have it stocked up on PlayStation Plus, I highly recommend you go and play that game, because that game is fucking gangbusters start to finish. Excellent stuff. But yeah, the last thing I need in my life is another 100-hour open world game. That's just not going to fly with me right now.
Same.
Yeah, so I guess that's going to bring me on to the last thing on my Shadows list, which I had, which was a movie called The Favourite. It's a costume drama, a black comedy costume drama that is actually linchpinned by a sense of really intense tragedy, which was actually kind of what makes the movie work. So that movie is really unique because it uses modern language in a traditional setting. So everybody's walking around effing and blinding and calling each other cunts and stuff. It feels very modern in its language, but it also feels very modern in its pacing and camera work. So usually when you think of like a costume drama or a historical movie, you think of it in these luscious, gorgeous, static shots and very slow paced, and people, talking in kind of Shakespearean, thespian, traditional British accents and stuff. But this one is much more modern. It's very dynamic. It's very sort of exciting to look at, but also gorgeous at the same time, because everything is filmed in the actual locations that the action really happened. The movie centers around Queen Anne II, who is played by Christ, I've forgotten her name.
Coleman?
Olivia Colman, yes, Olivia Colman, who I mostly know as a comedic actor from Peep Show. And then the other two main actresses are Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz, who are playing like the Queen's underlings, who are vying and sort of fighting and battling, often in a Machiavellian style, to gain the Queen's favor. And that's just really fun. It's a really fun dynamic, and it's a really fun film. But yeah, the directorial style is really unique and really interesting, and something we've never seen from that type of movie before. It really feels fresh and new in that sense. It has a fantastic soundtrack, which combines orchestral music with this fantastic gothic kind of like organ score. It's really great. It feels like very Phantom of the Opera style, and it feels very appropriate for what's happening on screen. Fantastic acting. Olivia Colman won the Oscar for her performance as the Queen. Is absolutely deserved. She knocks her role out of the park. But the thing is, like, generally speaking, it's a comedy. But there are scenes of great tragedy, because the Queen, I don't want to go into spoilers, but the Queen has suffered a great tragedy in her life. And it's such a major tragedy that it punctuates the fun and hilarity of the movie, and just pins everything in a kind of more realistic, grounded way, where you can totally understand where the Queen's coming from and stuff. And it's hard to explain. It's really difficult to explain, but it really works. It's one of those movies where you have the surface, right? But you have this underneath, this level that's hidden under the surface of real intense sadness that sometimes like punctures up through the surface of the movie like a mountain or something. That's what that movie is. That's what makes it work. Those are the really memorable scenes where the sadness suddenly erupts out of the hilarity or whatever, and just reminds you that, oh damn, this is fucked up. Oh, that's so sad. That's what this movie has. It has it in spades. Just fantastic acting, fantastic camera work, fantastic music. I highly recommend it. It's a masterpiece. When you think of costume dramas, I don't think you can do any better than this one. It's right up there with like Elizabeth and stuff like that. Perfect costume drama, historical entertainment. Perfect film. Great,
Cool.
brilliant.
I'm mostly interested in it because it's from the same director who made The Lobster, which is that movie where Colin Farrell gets turned into a lobster if he doesn't find like a girlfriend within 45 days. So, like, so yeah, I'm very curious about this movie as well. Like, that director has some crazy stuff going on.
You know what? I've always been interested in The Lobster, Brack, even before I saw The Favourite, but I had no idea about the director, so now I have watched The Favorite and found it absolutely fantastic. I'm like desperate to go back and watch The Lobster. So that's actually a good segue. Um, so Brack and I, actually, why don't you lead into it, Brack? What were we doing before we had all sorts of technical difficulties?
Yeah, like I had the idea. Uh, these days, like movies and TV shows, there's so many and they're so good that every once in a while you get on like a situation where you just watch something cool, or you just watch a movie you really like, or a TV show you really like, but nobody you know has actually seen it. Like nobody else has seen it, and you really want to talk about it, but nobody around you has watched it. So you have no one to discuss it with. So I was like, okay, we're gonna do like everybody gets to pick one movie, and the other person is forced to watch it before the next episode, and then we can so you can actually discuss it. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we did, but the recording was scrambled, so we're doing it again. We're picking new movies. So let's start with that. Chuchu, which movie
Well,
are you gonna make me watch?
Well, actually, before we get into that, Brack, this briefly, very briefly, talk about the films that we did watch. So, I forced Brack to watch the movie Hudson Hawk, the Bruce Willis comedy action movie, which I have loved since I was a little kid. And Brack, in return, made me watch Walk Hard, the Dewy Cox story, which, frankly, is a film that I've never even fucking heard of before. So we both went out of our way and watched those films. So for me, Dewy Cox, Brack's recommendation was brilliant. I fucking loved it. It was a really fantastic comedy. I think its joke quotient was excellent. I either laughed out loud or cracked a smile pretty much for every single joke that was in the film. I think it was brilliantly performed. The music in it was absolutely fantastic. Even though the songs were parodying various things from music history, they were also really catchy and really convincingly performed by their performers. So when you see John C. Reilly singing and playing his guitar and stuff, I mean, you can see I'm a guitarist myself in a rock band, so when you see him playing the guitar, he's not faking that. He's actually playing the guitar and is pretty talented at doing it too. Plus, John C. Reilly's voice, who knew? His voice is like a fucking angel. It's brilliant. Um, Really good singer. So it absolutely knocked it out in the park on that sense. There were so many musical references in it that I absolutely loved. I don't want to get into details because we already did that already and we've suffered tough technical difficulties, and I don't repeat myself for Brack sanity, but there were so many musical references, if you're a huge musical fan like me, that I really dug. I really got a kick out of. And everybody's in it too. Like, watching that movie, so many actors appear. Like, you got like Jack Black and Jason Schwartzman and Paul Rudd and Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig and Jonah Hill. Like, just pretty much, it's a who's who of, Saturday Night Live kind of. That kind of alumni. I was sad not to see Will Ferrell in there, but
Which musician do you think Will Ferrell should have played if he was in there?
Oh man, you know what? I would love to have seen Bob Dylan actually come out and just spark out Dewy Cox. That would have been hilarious.
like a straight up fist fight,
Yeah, a fist fight at some kind of like charity rally between Dewy Cox and Bob Dylan. That would have been hilarious. But it was also like a really good parody of musical biopics themselves, and made fun of a lot of kind of tropes and stuff. I personally love the way that when a famous person from history, be it Elvis Presley or the Beatles or whatever, entered a scene, that the characters would repeatedly refer to them by name, like, oh, what do you think about that, John McCartney? Wow, John Lennon. Like Paul McCartney, sorry, not John McCartney. But yeah, like this, they would very specifically, hammer over the head who that famous person was, but in a very funny comedic way, which echoes the real life biopics. 2 seconds of thoughts about Dewey Cox seems it's your pick, Brack.
I think Dewy Cox is like a hilariously clever like parody of like musical biographies. And the reason I wanted you to watch it is because we've been talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, which you like and I
Yeah.
like a bit less. But I think it's just funny the way Dewy Cox came out like 10, 20 years ago, and it kind of perfectly parodies whatever every little thing that Bohemian Rhapsody is doing. Like the way the movie starts with like Dewey Cox having to think about his entire life before he goes on to play, and that's like the same way like Bohemian Rhapsody starts. Like it's really clever, like the way. It's funny that the way that Dewey Cox parodies like music biographies is still the way music biographies get made.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Although it was 12 years ago, I think, Brack, technically, not 20. But yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I do like Bohemian Rhapsody. However, I do like Dewey Cox more than Bohemian Rhapsody. I think that this film fits in really well with films like Anchorman and The Ballad of Ricky Bobby and Step Brothers. It's right up there within them, and I think it ranks really high amongst those films. Actually, I don't want to really rank them right here, but I think this film is one of those films that I know for a fact that I'm going to watch multiple times over multiple years. It is a really, really, really funny film, and there's like uh, uh, just everything you want from that genre of film. Yeah, just really, really great stuff, and I'm so happy that Brack introduced me to this film. And really bizarrely, I'm really shocked that I did not know about this film. Like, how is this film not more famous than it is? You know, Step Brothers and stuff like Anchorman and Step Brothers, those are really famous films, right? How the fuck is this film not in the same league as those films? Because it's equally as good.
Like I think the name is brilliant, right? But I can see why that name
Yeah.
like doesn't really help with people like wanting to see something. Like
Yes.
it's named like a biography, but nobody knows what Dewey Cox is because it's fictional. So like Dewey Cox, I don't know who Dewey Cox is. Why would I watch like a biography about Dewey Cox?
Yeah. You're absolutely 100% hit the nail on the head there. When you said to me, you know, I want you to watch this film, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, I was like, the fuck? What do you want me to watch? Jesus. Like, you know, like such a really terrible, terrible title. I mean, it's a hilarious title, of course, because it just like it takes. I think it like even that makes fun of like those compilations you get. You know, like This Is Morrissey or whatever. You know, like CDs that you would never ever pick up in the bargain bin or whatever. So I definitely think it's taken making fun of that type of thing, but. Man, it's a really quality film, and I urge you to go out and watch it immediately. If you like Anchorman, if you like Step Brothers, or any of those type of films, you're gonna fucking love this film. So, Brack, what did I order you to go and watch?
Hudson Hawk,
Oh
which
yeah.
it's a little bit harder to be positive about Hudson Hawk compared to Dewey Cox, to be honest.
Well, I don't agree with that, but carry on.
Like the weird thing about Hudson Hawk is that like half the movie feels like a run of the mill '90s like action movie type thingies, like some other like '90s movies that everybody else forgot about. Like I don't know anybody, I don't know which ones, but like there are so many movies around that time that aren't all that good, and nobody really like other Bruce Willis movies, like The Jackal or stuff like that. Oh no, maybe not The Jackal. That's a serious movie, I think, but those type of action comedies that like from the '90s that nobody really remembers. That's the half the movie, but the other half is like really bizarre parody of those type of movies, but which I enjoyed because of it's so out there and so bizarre, and it's kind of makes fun of those other movies. But the jokes in general weren't all that funny to me, so I really didn't really have a good time watching it.
Oh, I'm really, really sad to hear that, Brack. Obviously, I disagree with you because I recommended this movie. I think good points about Hudson Hawk. There is a roster of really classic bad guys in this film that really put it over the top for me. Richard E. Grant and Sandra Bernhardt as the Mayflowers have so many.
they are the best part for sure. Like they are hilarious together. Like they're completely over the top and insane. That like you can't help but enjoy when they're on screen because you really don't know what the hell is gonna happen next.
Yeah, I agree with that, but also like the candy bar guys, like there's this whole CIA team that are named after candy bars. You got like Snickers and Butterfingers and Kit Kat, who's played by David Caruso, who basically only communicates with like worded cards, and most of the time he's dressed up exactly the same as Bruce Willis, pretending to be Bruce Willis, miming as Bruce Willis, and then other times he's basically posing as like a historic Greek statue. Um, yeah, it's just so weird and bizarre that it just really works for me. There are so many classic lines in that, and just like this atmosphere of like unpredictable, really fun stuff. That I just loved it. But the thing is, I I loved that from when I was a kid. When I watched that, I was like 11, 10, 12, maybe, whatever, that type of age, and it really hit me hard at that point, like how fun and how silly and how funny it was. And it's like one of those films that's maintained its positions when I grew up, especially because it's one of those films that completely bypassed the mainstream. You know, like nobody that film was another one of those huge bombs, and nobody really understood it at the time. But for me, I thought it was great. Um, and these days, like it has kind of like a cult following, but it's like a really, really, really cult following. Because I think the mainstream totally passed it by. But I don't know. That's a film that's just remained with me, and when I watch it these days as an adult, I still find it funny in the ways that I found it funny when I was a kid. So I don't know. This is really great. So I'm sad that you didn't quite find the value in it. But hey, that's life and that's opinion. Um, so Brack, this was a good idea, and I'm very, very glad. I'm very glad that I got to see Walk Hard, the Dewy Cox story, and I think you're probably less glad that you saw Hudson Hawk. But
Now, I am glad that now I don't have to listen to you anymore saying, you need to watch Hudson Hawk. This hilarious, funny movie, Hudson Hawk. You really need to watch it. Like, I don't have to listen to that anymore. Like, I watch it now.
yeah, and I don't have to listen to you need to watch fucking Dewy Cox. Oh, although
Yeah.
I think you literally said that to me like maybe twice in the history of our relationship. But
You
still,
really, you really need to watch some cocks, Chuchu. Like, just watch those cocks.
come on, Bragg. That joke is done multiple times in the film. Um, what was it? What was the guy? Like, no, the guy was little nutsack and Cox in a nice package. Was the joke, wasn't it? That was pretty good though. But yeah. So anyway, if you want to go watch Hudson Hawk or Dewy Cox, I probably between those two films. Let's face it. I mean, the Walk Hard is probably the better movie between those, as begrudgingly as I am to admit that. But we should have included you, the Radiophonic Sea Creatures audience, into our recommendations, our little game that we're playing. But we didn't do that, but we're learning from our mistakes here. So we're going to include you on the next run of things. So Brack, what is the next movie that you want to recommend to me and to, in fact, our audience?
So the next movie I'm gonna make you watch is the 1981 Michael Mann movie Thief. It's actually his first movie, and the reason I want you to watch it because it's an excellent movie. Like it's just an awesome like yeah, heist type movie, and the other reason I want you to watch it is because you can so clearly see that the movie Drive took a lot of inspiration from this movie, like the way it's lit, the way the movie looks with like the neon lighting and like the dark streets, the dark empty streets with neon lighting and like the wet pavement. It's just like, and the score by Tangerine Dream, like it's just excellent. Like a lot of like modern movies that when they try to make like a neon 80s look, this is the movie that it looks it most looks like. And it's just awesome performance by James Caan, from one of his best. The first time you see that beautiful Dennis Farina mustache on the screen is in this movie as well. So just go out and see it. It's awesome.
All right. Yes. I guess I have no choice but to track that down, either on DVD or more disreputable services. Um. So I guess.
By the way,
I,
like this is gonna be like really like a negative on seeing this movie, but this movie, if you look at like the award section on IMDb, there's like one nominee for like a Cannes, for like the Palme d'Or, but it has like a Razzie nominee, and
oh,
there's like another award it's like called the Stinker Bad Movie Awards, and it has like one, two, three, four, five, six, seven nominees. Like it has one positive nominee, and then eight nominees that are just negative. So like,
damn.
and this is definitely a movie that was misunderstood, because like I have no clue why those movies are like those negative awards, because this movie is excellent.
Yeah. You see, I feel the same way about Hudson Hawk. You know, you have like the you're sort of saying to me like Hudson Hawk wasn't a good movie, and I'm to be honest, I'm agreeing with you through good sportsmanship and stuff like that. But like, there is a part of me that is like, I just don't understand why people don't like this movie. Like, I just don't really understand it. Like, but the movie I'm going to recommend to you, Brack, that you go watch. The part of me wants to recommend Glengarry Glen Ross, but I'm going to save that for a different time, and I'm going to invite you to watch Mandy, the recent Nicolas Cage movie. Because goddamn, holy shit, fucking hell, that's a brilliant, brilliant film, and I absolutely do not think that film is getting the love that it requires. Obviously that film has maintained already, has garnered, sorry, already a pretty good cult following, and it is destined to become an underground classic in the future, whatever. It's a pretty new movie, but it's absolutely fantastic, and definitely one of the best films I've watched in the last 10 years. It's brilliant, and just nobody's watching it because, I don't know, maybe it's a hard sell or whatever. It's like a really oddly specific artistic movie, but not really, because it doesn't even play to that crowd, because the second half of it is fucking crazy. um
It's like it's what I the way you describe it. It's like, oh, one half is like super artsy and like for like the art crowd, like in France or some shit like that, and the
yeah,
other half is like a crazy pulpy, over the top R-rated horror movie.
yeah, it's like the first half is something like, I don't know, like Drive, and the second half is something like Planet Terror. It's it's a really weird juxtaposition, but it really works. It's awesome. But I can understand how that would totally throw the mainstream movie-going audience off their game, and I definitely, you know, totally appreciate people not really knowing quite what to think about that film. So, but I also believe that was made for people like you and I, Brack, who are really deep, hardcore into movies, and really respect that type of like artistic freedom and stuff. And I really hope you get a kick out of Mandy that I got, because I thought it was absolutely fucking brilliant, and I thought it was one of the best films I've seen in the last 10 years. But we'll see. And perhaps you, Radiophonic Sea Creatures audience. So if you're listening to this, if you can spare a couple of hours out of your day, go watch Thief, and then go watch Mandy, and then come back and listen to what we think about those films. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting episode, especially if you watch along. So yeah, with that, we're gonna sign off on this episode. We're really sad to say, or sad to have such a short episode, but it can't be helped because of technical demons and such like. And as you can probably hear from my slurring voice, I have become progressively drunk, and I'm doing my best now to speak quickly and lucidly. But I've drunk so much like whiskey that it would put a camel on the floor, frankly. So I'm kind of doing my best here. But yeah, with that, we're going to kind of sign off. Anything else you want to say to the Radiophonic Sea Creatures audience, Brack, before we sign off here?
No, I'm just tired from like recording 2 episodes in a row.
Yeah, but this episode was significantly shorter, and I think we did a very fucking good job here, Brack. I'm not going to ring our own bell or anything, but I guess I am ringing it by saying
I just
that.
feel like something is missing when I don't get to hear to Human Metal talk about Mega Man for half an hour.
Yeah, yeah. I think what is missing is perhaps the cartoon Z's coming out of my head, and the Radiophonic Sea Creatures audience's Z's too. Except for those 3 people who actually love Mega Man, which is probably our entire audience, so what the fuck do I know? But anyway, Radio Sea Creatures audience, have a good day, or if it's not the day, sleep tight, sweet dreams. Don't dream of Brack buggering you up the ass, although now that I've said that, you probably will, and that's going to be awesome for you. Take care of yourselves. Until next time.